Welcome to Kinky Knots Cafes. Proactive is the Way. Proactive is the Way is a podcast brought to you by two sisters who dove into the health and wellness industry, one planned and the other by fate. We have joined forces to bring to you authentic conversations about our personal experiences as it relates to managing our health, working within the industry, and taking our combined knowledge to share with you some golden nuggets that you can take with you to live the best version of you. Over the next year, we will host 2 episodes a month, and each month we will focus on a topic that is designed to increase an awareness of tools and resources to enhance an aspect of your mind, body, and spirit. Today, we are closing with our Get Out Your Own Damn Way series. During our last episode, conspiracy theories and paranormal encounters were at the top of our discussions, as Tiff and I shared how the vices we thought we created in good defense to protect ourselves actually almost ruined our lives. When Tiffany realized that she was damaging relationships with people who thought highly of her, and I realized that I kept giving my power away because of other people's fears, when we both gained a sense of awareness, it was only then we were able to intervene and take corrective action. But how did we do that? How did we become so aware to correct the bad habits we were creating? Unbeknownst to us, we were leveraging techniques that Brianna Wiest discussed within her book, The Mountain Is You. Today, we are going to share with you how you can use some of the techniques she shared to help you get ahead of your destructive behaviors and sabotage them before you sabotages yourself. The mountain is you. During our discussions, we will cover the following. Today, we are going to focus on self-sabotage. What is it? Negative emotions. What are they? And how do we get better at interpreting our negative emotions so that we can work better through them? We'll also discuss building emotional intelligence. We will provide a high-level overview and a couple techniques for consideration. And then, of course, finally, we'll wrap things up with the past, the present, the future. How our desire to frame our behavior based on a point in time can impact how we personally develop. So before we dive in, Tiff, okay, I want our audience to understand that we are only covering highlights of this rich, heavily contented body of work. We will not do it justice in our hour-long show. However, we do hope that at the least it will spark a desire within you to buy the book, read the book, and analyze it and figure out how the concepts apply or do not apply within your life. High horse alert. It is very important that we become better at taking a vested interest in researching, analyzing information, and forming a conclusion based on our research, leveraging different resources along with our understanding, and then making sure that we engage a body of people to get a perspective that will help you to solidify your thoughts or challenge you to see things in a new light without condemnation. Mm-hmm. The goal is to ensure we are building a society of critical thinkers who will help us to be more progressive, better visionaries, innovators or creators, and judges for our future generations. All right, Tiff, let's get to it. Self-sabotage, right?
All right.
All right. So, self-sabotage. We'll start with the quote here. Self-sabotage is not a way we hurt ourselves. It's a way we try to protect ourselves. Now, last week, you and I, we took some time, we were trying to figure out, from our personal perspective, right? What is self-sabotage, right? And I said, this week, we're going to focus on Brianna and how does she define it, right? And so she essentially walks us through kind of the many facets of self-sabotage. She talks about the self-sabotaging cycle and some of the emotional responses that come into play when we are self-sabotaging. When she defined it, she essentially said, self-sabotage is when we have two conflicting desires. One is conscious, and the other one is unconscious. And we'll know how we want to move forward in life, but for some reason, we become stuck. Okay. And so essentially, self-sabotage is what happens is when we refuse to consciously meet our innermost needs. And often we do this because we do not believe that we are capable of handling them or that we are deserving, right? So I want to discuss, how does it come about, right? And she gives us a number of ways how self-sabotage comes about. She indicated it comes about because of irrational fear. Sometimes we are sabotaging our behaviors, or our sabotaging behaviors are the result of long-held and unexamined fears that we have about the world and ourselves. He said it can come about from unconscious and negative associations. What's unfamiliar, and we'll talk about these more in depth as we go along today. And then she stated our belief systems and our subconscious commitments. Essentially, what we believe about our life, will ultimately make true about our life. And she shared, that's why it's so crucial for us to be aware of any narrative that might be outdated and work to change them. She talked about our subconscious commitments. And these are basically what we want more than anything in life. We want these things, these commitments. But we aren't even aware of them. We're not necessarily aware of them. We can identify them, though, by looking at the things that we struggle with the most and the things that we are most driven by. And once we begin to peel back the layers of our motivations towards each, we'll be able to find a root cause. And when we find the same root cause for everything, we've found our core commitment. And so I want to stop there because I know I just gave a lot. I want us to kind of process and digest all of that. I want to get your take on the whole notion of self-sabotage and how it comes about.
Self-sabotage basically is blocking your own success or preventing, yourself from accomplishing goals. But like you stated, how do we get there? How do we get stuck? And what I connected with while reading and while listening to her Audible book was with the neuroscience part of it. So I looked at what the brain just naturally does. And then when when the brain does what it does naturally, and then what we then try to analyze, when we try to analyze it ourselves, most of the time that what happens is we disassociate. And then when disassociation comes with something that we are analyzing for ourselves, it becomes fragmented, or it becomes an unrealistic or untrue belief system we develop. That then ultimately plays into our self-sabotaging methods we develop surrounding our life. She talked about the brain and how you have the prefrontal cortex, you have the amygdala, and then you have the hippocampus, and how over time the areas of the brain, because they're all of these parts are then strongly connected to our vagus system, which is our flight or fight response system, but also connected to our gut, like when you get gut feelings about something. But sometimes we get gut feelings about something and it's not real. But she was saying that you do need to rely more on your gut feeling, because it I guess for some it's more real than not, but for others, especially, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, with lower emotional intelligence, will interpret things incorrectly.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. She talks about that, and we're actually going to get into that a little bit later. We're going to talk a little bit about that gut intelligence, right?
Right.
And so
based off of which is different from our and you spoke already about irrational fears, these illusions that we develop that contribute to our self-sabotage arise out of a level of comfort we desire. So, and not to get too ahead, because I know you'll probably talk about this too, but then that would play into the confirmation bias. So the way my brain works when I'm reading these authors is it's always pulling at the science part of it. Like, what does the evidence say? And she tried to pull that in. She had some opinion, and when you mix opinion with evidence, it kind of diminishes the delivery for me. But still overall, very well, I understood that how I too have self-sabotage, like we talked about the first 2 weeks, and that that basically self-sabotage is basically preventing your own success and being in your own, being in your own way. And ultimately, the reason people will point fingers, but and I know it's cliche to say that they have 3 pointing back at themselves, but it's true. It's you. It's you, and trying to navigate and navigating or recognizing, acknowledging that this is what you are doing. You have to first know what it is.
Right. Having that level of awareness, right? Yeah.
Right. And so like when you just said, and again, there's all different kind of ways that you can say things, but you just said, oh shoot, now I have to look back. But I was just saying, basically, another way to put it would be aware and unaware.
Well, yeah, because we said it when I shared that when it was finally when we became aware, right? Within our lives and how it played out, how we started to recognize it was only when we had that level of awareness, when we were able to finally start taking action to correct our behavior. And we were doing this though pre-Brianna, right? Pre The Mountain Is You.
Right. We just didn't know what it was.
We didn't know what it was. Yeah, we were just.
Well, we didn't have a formal understanding. I'm sure we knew what it was, and we weren't calling it that, right?
Exactly.
Because we didn't need to make that. We didn't need to make that distinction necessarily.
Right.
But we knew we were uncomfortable. We knew that there was something going on, something that was blocking us from from our potential, our maximal, potential.
Yeah.
And everybody could feel that, right? Because there's the gut feeling again.
Right. And how do we get better though at recognizing that? We need to be very cognizant with regards to the behaviors that come into play when we are self-sabotaging. And Brianna, she actually does go through a list of, some of the behaviors that we should recognize to help bring about awareness. Because we tend to lack that awareness. Sometimes we don't know how to define it, but she went through about 17 characteristics or behaviors, and she provided this list. Now, keep in mind, this list is not all inclusive, and it does not necessarily apply to everyone. I like how she said, that some of the reactions that we have, everybody reacts in their own way, right? And it doesn't impact everybody necessarily the same way, right? So she went through a number of them. We're not going to cover all of them, but I'm going to list a few, and then Tiff, I want you and I to kind of dive into a few of them. So she talked about, when we talk about self-sabotage, what it looks like, you'll find it in the form of resistance. You'll find it in the form of individuals who have a comfortability with a certain level of success. And she talks about uprooting. She dives into perfectionism, the inability to process emotions, having attachment to things we don't necessarily want, judging others, pride, etc. And so what I wanted to do was kind of talk a little bit about some of these characteristics or behaviors that she says comes into play when we are self-sabotaging. Were there any that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, perfectionism stood out to me. The reason it stood out to me is because a lot of people look at me, and I know they look at you as well, as we're always trying to be perfect. I don't know if you've ever heard that throughout your lifespan. And I have no desire to be perfect at all. But that really resonated with me, what she stated about perfectionism, where it's not a real ideal for any human to have, because nothing exists perfectly. It's impossible, because if it did exist perfectly, then really there would be no existence.
Right.
That makes sense, because it is through adversity, it is through things being imperfect that are the catalyst for, help me here,
Innovation.
correct,
Growth.
or progressiveness.
Progressive.
Correct.
Nothing
Right.
is perfect because everything is constantly evolving, right?
Right. Everything is dynamic. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So that one stood out for me.
If I can chime in, I was the same one. Perfectionism was at the top of my list. I was like, wow, because it's not only something I don't necessarily see that in myself at all.
I don't either, but people always say that to me, and I get so offended because I'm like, I know that not to be true.
Yeah, I mean, and just so I can clarify, making sure that folks understand, perfectionism is all about when we expect, our work, it has to be perfect the first time we do it, right? And we end up getting in this cycle of making sure that everything is perfect. But from my point of view, and my point of view, I feel like if we were that way, we would always get started with things and never really finish it, right?
Right.
Because we're over analyzing, overthinking whatever it is that we need to do or accomplish. And in that, we kind of we'll lose ourselves and really never really fully accomplish our goal. And when she was discussing this, what I liked within her book is that she was giving us, well, if you are someone that, if you find yourself to be in this state of perfectionism, how do you resolve that? And her guidance was, don't worry about doing it well. Just do it. Right.
Remember I told you that? That's how I got restarted again on my workout this week. So I'm like, oh, if I don't go to the gym and I do this A, B, and C, I do 1, 2, 3, then I'm just not gonna go.
Right.
You can't operate that way.
Yeah, you have to just do it. And I'm going to steal a quote or borrow a quote from one of my supervisors back in the day. I loved when she said this, and I was like, I am so taking that quote, because I said, this is how I live my life. I am an agile project manager. I am someone who will get things started and then work to improve it. And she said, because it was a smaller company, she said, when you're a smaller company like this, we just got to execute. And literally, we are walking around building the plane while we're flying it.
Yes. And I say that to people all the time.
Yes.
Well, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Come on.
No, I was saying like during COVID, when I would talk to people and I talk to patients, I would say, listen, because they had this uncertainty and they would come into the office and everybody's frustrated. And to diffuse that anger, I would like, look here. No, you're correct. Because we're not going to get into a confrontational visit today about COVID, about the coronavirus. We are building the plane as we are flying it. We do not, as providers, as medical providers, have all of the information to give you. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say to you that this virus is this, and this. And because I don't know, if I'm being honest and if I'm being a competent professional, what I will speak from is the evidence and only leave it to the evidence. And fortunately and unfortunately, that's from a governmental angle with like the CDC, USPSTF, AHRQ. I'm using, the guidelines from them, having to use them. But like with the coronavirus, I would tell my patients all the time, and that would diffuse. I'm telling you, that saying right there would diffuse. It would prevent the confrontation when I'm trying to do patient education and explain to them, hey, look, get vaccinated. Like people who didn't believe in vaccines, who have never even been vaccinated, or just overall just didn't participate in vaccination. Fine, I have to because of my profession. Because one, what do I look like telling people to get vaccinated and I'm not vaccinated? But two, going back to the point, it diffused. It got rid of a lot of confrontation. It got rid of a lot of uncertainty when I framed it, when I made that reference, because then it doesn't look like the conspiracy. It doesn't look like all the conspiracy that was associated with coronavirus.
Yeah, and
I explained it that way, so I like that. I like that saying as well too.
Yeah. So just build, while we're flying it, we're building. And so I really appreciated that comment, because I said, this is how you get stuff done, right? This is how you get it started, so that you can start working on it and you don't get stuck in that whole paralyzation by overanalyzing everything, right?
Right.
Okay, what were some other ones that so like there was disorganization, attachment to what you don't really
disorganization. So that really hit home for me, right? Because for years, and I don't know if you do this, like I can't be in a disorganized space. I can't think. There is something that retards my efforts when the space is disorganized or the space is, cluttered.
I call that the mommy syndrome. Mommy, we couldn't get out the house until the floors was
till the dishes was washed, till the clothes were folded, till the beds were made.
The clothes were ironed and had creases in them.
And you know what? And to this day, I am still like that. Like, I do not want to leave my house
Don't
unless
leave the
there's
house.
a certain amount of cleanliness that I'm okay with.
Mm-hmm.
When if I mean, Toya, even if I notice something on the floor, I will go back and mop it. I don't know what I'm afraid of. Like, am I afraid that maybe if I don't make it home that day, that if they have to go into my home, they're going to see like what a slob I was,
Yep.
or I don't know, but I think, and then it's an irrational fear, right? Like, what difference does it make if I did leave my home a little bit of a mess? Because she also made the example of the person who goes to the grocery store with a head wrap on their head and the joggers and just looking unkempt and disheveled. And she basically was like, don't worry about it. Ain't nobody really thinking about you like that. And I think that disorganization, even though for me, a disorganized, cluttered space does give me that feeling. She then went into spotlighting.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
For,
yeah.
for me, I did hone in on disorganization, but the one that really touched me, and it was only because I had a personal experience, was when she highlighted the attachment to what you don't really want. And I had shared, I think in a couple episodes back that, when I was graduating from school, I wanted to go into fashion design. And she said, sometimes, our dreams that we have, or the dreams that we have for our life, they're not even our dreams. We adopt them from other people's preferences.
Perceptions of what our lives should be. I agree. Because think about me. All the talent I had, like with music, the easy way I picked up on music and singing and playing the clarinet, playing the cello. You played the saxophone. Like we have so many other talents, and then we're limited to one career choice. We can't get out of not wanting, because this is how we were groomed, right? Now, if I do music, like I was thinking about this week, and I told you before too about me wanting to do stand-up comedy, but I was thinking about this week, like I should just enroll in music classes and take formal voice.
Why not? Absolutely.
Right, but in her book, she shares with us that the reason why we don't is because we're afraid of how it will look. Like it will look like we're not as successful. Or and the reason, she also brought up a really good point too, about creatives, about gosh, the reason that I said I was not going to forget this and I forgot it, that we do things, we really kind of are negating our creative self. When we don't realize the truth of our and we holding ourselves to just like one career choice.
We're not pursuing our greatest desires, and we're doing it based on others' perceptions of us, what that will look like. But then of course, in the next breath, why does that matter? Once again, irrational thinking, irrational fear, something that we have to get better at learning not to play into. And with regards to that attachment to what you don't really want, what I liked was her resolution. We have to really be willing to accept, because a part of that was, and I'm going to go back, she talked about sometimes our dreams are that of others. And then she said, in other cases, we determine what we want, and then we outgrow our old ambitions. And you share that, well, I'm in this particular career, but I have this gift over here. And I want to pursue that.
And she even mentions that you should pursue those things that come to you easily. And so I got to thinking, like, I easily pick up music. Like I can hear something and instantly I can sing it, or I can hear the drums, I can hear the beat, I can make my voice sound like I can mimic, I can make my voice sound like Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey. Can't hit her high notes. But I can, I could do that.
Right.
Um, and so she makes she makes the point of doing things that come easy to you. I
Right.
like to talk a lot too. I feel like, if I become a better storyteller, I could do stand-up comedy because I'm also humorous.
Right. Right.
Um,
So you can do these things, and you have to be willing to accept, that maybe the success story that you had at a point in time, it doesn't look the same anymore, the way that you once thought it might, and pursue or forge a new path. And it's okay. It's okay to do that.
mhm.
Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And we'll talk about that because there's a pro and a con to that as well, right?
Uh-huh.
Other one was pride. I wanted to make sure we touched on that because she talked about being prideful and how we tend to make, and this is what we were just talking about, how we make decisions based on how we imagine people view our lives, right? What it actually is.
And we do this a lot too because we're in love with an idea of something. And an idea actually really doesn't have substance if you think about it until you put the work or you put the experience or you put something behind it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That makes sense. So we get in we get in love with these ideas of, for example, like being successful, how it looks to someone that we are successful, but we really don't want to put in the work of the actual success.
Mm-hmm. She talks about that as well. Yeah. But yeah, she hones in on how we just have to be very careful, overcome, if we could, our attachment to pride. Resolution she indicated we have to really start to see ourselves as more wholly and honestly, being more honest with ourselves. And instead of thinking that we need to prove to everyone around us, how flawless that we are, we need to imagine ourselves a little bit more realistically, as people who, despite our weaknesses, we're really out here just doing the best that we can,
Right.
And she,
you said that, and it basically what you said, what you don't really want, right? And she said basically the free person is the one who releases themselves from what they don't really want. That's the person who makes the declaration like, what did she say? She was something like,
I'm getting angry. I'm no longer attaching myself essentially to this view or to this view of myself, and I'm going to make a change. You have to get to a point where you're just so moved with emotion.
And I think she said the F word. I think she said something like, I'm getting the F out of this. She said she screamed it.
Yeah, but it's where where you get to basically hitting rock bottom, and you realize you have to change.
And that place is where most people are. She said that are successful. They either came from an experience that was like a rock bottom experience, or they have a rock bottom experience that basically propulses them. Is propulse a word? Is propulse a word? Propels them, right? Propels them forward, or propels them or forces them to make the necessary changes so that they can reach their maximal potential, so that they can be successful.
Yeah. And in that, when we get to that point, I think we realize that we, which was another one that she stated, where we would see a self-sabotaging behavior, we no longer have that fear of failing, right? Generally the fear of failing is something that holds people back from putting in the work, you had shared earlier, putting in the
Uh-huh.
work that they need to put in order to become truly great at something.
Uh-huh.
And it's interesting how when we do hit that rock bottom, we're like, you know what? That fear is out the door, right? We're no longer being irrational. We're open to pursuing something new within our lives. We're no longer worrying, and then as a result, we're able to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And so she talks a little bit about, our fears of failing. And if we are that type of individual, right,
Mm-hmm.
who has a fear, you don't have to hit rock bottom, right? You just have to recognize that you're exuding a certain behavior and work to resolve it. And if fear of failing is one of the behaviors that you possess, just be mindful that when we fail out of negligence, we are taking a step back. But
Yes.
when we fail because we are attempting new feats, we are taking one step closer to what will work. And this made me this particular view made me think about in Design Your Life when they mentioned it. We have to get good at. It's okay to fail.
Uh-huh.
We have to get good at failing forward. Right.
Failing forward, correct. And and that's such a good point to bring up, because when she is talking about that, she also mentions about experiences, and how, like, when we're telling ourselves some stuff, instinctive, right, experiences versus uh
Mhm.
instinctive experiences versus, like clairvoyant experiences. She
Clairvoyance versus fear, that there's a that the emotions
Mhm.
are very similar when you think about what comes out of clairvoyance and fear. And we're going to actually dive into that a little bit more. So you're going to get to talk about that in more detail. But let's go ahead. We'll jump into the self-sabotaging cycle. She also goes into some of the key symptoms. So if you're trying to recognize within yourself, oh my God, I am self-sabotaging, how do we recognize that we are in a continual cycle? And so she goes through about 12 of them. We won't cover all 12 of them here today, but just wanted to point out a few of them. One of them that she mentioned was when we spend more time trying to impress people who don't like us than spending time with people who love us
Mm.
for who we are, right? And
Yes.
so she talks about the importance of this, how we have to spend more time with the people who love us for who we are, right? The other one was another symptom is when our main priority in life is to be liked, even if that comes at the expense of being happy.
Mhm.
And how often does that occur, where you just stay in a particular situation, right?
Mhm.
So I'll give, working at a respective job, right? And not wanting to have that view that I was a failure,
Right.
not wanting to leave, or uh, not wanting to leave because I didn't want to be viewed a certain way.
Or you didn't want to start over because it
Or
was going to be uncomfortable.
correct, starting over. Well, then
When the starting over may have provided you with more benefit, or provided you with more, success than you could ever imagine.
right, exactly. And so we have to be mindful of those symptoms. The other one that just kind of hit me, I was like, wow, that's really impactful. The one of the symptoms she indicated was when we value our doubt more than our potential. We value our doubt more than our potential. How do we value something that has such a negative connotation?
Because
Then,
we're conditioned that way. Look around you. We're conditioned to believe that way, which is why it's good that you homeschool your children.
mm-hmm, yeah,
Because they teach that in school.
mm-hmm,
So
wow,
it's so embedded. It's so there's so much history and so much there's just so many reasons, very complex that we don't have time to discuss that here, but
right. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure, keep in mind, folks, once again, high level overview, but she has so many concepts in here, and we don't want to go down a rabbit hole into any of them too much, but we just want to give you just a taste, give you just a taste so that you will be interested in learning more. The other one, let's jump into the emotional response. She shared that, as we are going through the process of trying to decommission self-sabotaging behaviors, or even when we're creating or we possess self-sabotaging behaviors, there are certain emotions that we go through. And some of those emotions she highlighted. And once again, this is just to help us bring about a sense of an awareness that we might not have. We might find that we're angry all the time, or that we possess a level of anger, or that we're sad, have guilt. We might be embarrassed.
let me stop you there, because she does make a good point about having emotions and that emotions being okay, and especially of anger. See, what we are taught and how we are controlled throughout our entire existence is we are taught that anger is wrong. Is that not right? We're taught that in school, like no outbursts. But anger actually is a catalyst for getting stuff done. Anger, you not having an emotion about something says a lot to me. And a lot of people are quick to judge the person that gets angry, but that just means they have
Condemn.
You said, say it again, I'm sorry.
Condemn. They love to condemn you
for being angry. And we can look at it from the Black woman perspective, right? We actually have a label, the angry Black woman.
Yep.
In all actuality, it has nothing to do with anger. It's more like they confuse the passion, they confuse the assertiveness. For us wanting to get something done because we want to be successful at whatever it is, we desire. But yeah, I didn't want you to go past that without making that point that she did say that anger actually is an emotion we should be experiencing. And we should be comfortable with experiencing and having.
Absolutely. And even within all of the emotions that come, the emotional responses that arise, she actually walks through and shares how we should take the time to address them. Allow ourselves to go through the respective experience versus feeling negative or having some sort of shame for possessing an emotion. Emotions are a natural part of us being human. It's a natural part of us being able to get through certain situations, circumstances within our life. And every time we suppress it, what ends up happening? When you suppress something so much and
it comes up worse. It makes it worse.
Exactly. You will have an explosive reaction to it, and it ends up being worse than had you addressed it initially.
And she addresses questions that we should be asking ourselves, like, why do I feel this way? What is this feeling trying to tell me about the action I'm trying to take? Is there something I need to learn here? What do I need to do to honor my needs right now? Quoting her. And then saying, like with anger, sadness, and you mentioned inadequacy, when those feelings come up, how important it is to make space for them.
Make space for them.
But
Absolutely.
we don't.
Mm-mm.
We don't, because we're taught not to. And it's so hard. It's so hard to reprogram yourself. And it's almost unfair to an extent, right? Because it's like, and I know you'll get to this probably by the end. It's like, write a manifesto, write a letter to yourself. Write a letter to your future
self. And I'm
self.
about to say that because you said it was hard, but I think we need to stop saying it's hard. It really is not hard. If you want to say it's hard, you really are saying, I don't want to put forth the effort to sit down and really reflect. Because I'm going to tell you, when I finally figured out that I was sabotaging myself and my career, etc., my growth, it was in a matter of like 5 minutes. I sat down, I reflected, and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm giving people my power. And as a result, here I am, worried about my future because I keep giving my power away. Take it back and get to work, right?
And that's another practice we should do too, is junk journal.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. But I didn't even journal. I literally sat here, Tiffany. It was all of maybe 5 minutes where I just said to myself, okay, you know what, girl, you're going to have to get it together, because never in a day should someone else's fears, someone else's behavior make you do what you're doing. You need to get it together. So I took it upon myself, held myself accountable for getting my stuff together. Right. And it took all of maybe 5 minutes of me thinking about it. And I'm not saying that everyone has that capability, right? Everyone has that capability, but I don't want people to leave here thinking that it is really a complicated process. It really is not. The only way you make it hard is by not doing, is by inaction. Because we've already given you the tools about how to progress effectively, how to eliminate bad habits. It doesn't have to be something that this grandiose endeavor. 1%, one move. I want to change my health. I'm going to go to the gym for 15 minutes and come home. And I'm going to do that each day until I can get up to 20 minutes, right? So I want to make sure that, it really is not hard. It's about you possessing the drive within you, trying to find it and find your way up out of the behaviors you've created. Some other self-sabotaging behaviors or emotions that come out of it are jealousy. And I thought this one was really good because, when I think about jealousy, I think about it from the sense of, oh, she's jealous of her because of what she has, etc. And I look at it on the surface. What I liked about what Brianna did was she was like, no, it ain't that surface jealousy. It's about you. It's not about them. It's about you. It's not about what they have. It's about you. It's about your self-dissatisfaction, the sadness that you possess that's making you like that. She talked about resentment.
So she talks about it as a cover-up emotion.
A cover-up emotion. Exactly. You're covering up how you feel about yourself, and you are projecting that on someone else.
And she basically says, if you truly want to know what you want out of your life, look at those that you're jealous of. Look at those that you are jealous of. And then to resolve it,
you want what they got.
Right. So to resolve it, what she says is you congratulate them for the things they have.
You know what? Because over time, what ends up
comes back to you.
Yeah. You have to reverse engineer your thought process, right?
Yeah.
She talks about resentment of others, and how resentment and regret are different. And how I attuned this was, or how I was able to better understand, is the resentment was the tendency that we have to have a certain level of expectation of others. And when they don't meet our expectation, as if we have some control, as if we can, force people to be who and what we want them to be, we end up showing our emotions in the form of resentment. She talks about regret,
Yeah, how that is a projected regret.
But it's of ourselves, right? Chronic fear, I think I highlighted that as well. Can you think of any other emotional responses that were not highlighted here? I think she provided a good list of emotions that one may go through when they are exuding self-sabotaging behaviors.
I think, and Daddy and I talk about this a lot, I think guilt was a good one.
Yeah.
Because how she explains it is that it has more to do with what we didn't do than what we did.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And how she talked about how people who commit heinous acts, they don't feel guilty. People who've never done anything feel the most guilt.
Yep. Isn't that something? I thought that was troubling, actually. I was like, this is real troubling. What does this mean for our future? But okay, but I'm going to tie this up with regards to the emotional response. We'll wrap it up with one of the quotes that she shared was, we have to be mindful the things that are bothering us the most right now. None of these things they're not external forces that are trying to take you out or torture you just for the sake of it. They essentially are our own mind, right? Our own mind identifying what in our life can be fixed, what in our life can be changed and transformed. And she shared that, if we continue to get in the habit of not taking action, the sirens is the term she used. It will get louder. And if you never learn to listen to it, you will probably just disassociate, I think you said that, from it, and then be a victim to it. So she
nothing like victimizing yourself, huh?
We good at that.
We'll do it, won't we?
Yes.
We always talking about he will do it, won't he? We will do it, won't we?
Yes, we will. Can I get an amen? I feel like I was.
Can I get an I say?
All right. So it's a great segue. That quote was a great segue into, how do we go about interpreting our negative emotions? And I'll start here with the quote. She stated, embedded within each self-sabotaging behavior, we actually possess the key to unlock it, if only we can understand it first. And so this is what we're doing. We're trying to make sure that we have the capabilities of understanding those behaviors. And so we're going to talk about our subconscious mind and our gut intelligence. How do we learn to recognize and interpret these negative emotions? First of all, our subconscious mind will communicate with us in profound ways. And it's really important that we try to understand what it is saying, because embedded in each self-sabotaging behavior is the solution. And so she covers, a few points. She says, we have the capabilities, our subconscious mind we'll tend to overwork ourselves. We'll tend to eat poorly. We will choose competitive friends, or we'll pursue or dwell on past relationships. We'll feel unhappy when nothing is actually wrong. That's a lack or of self-promotion, or we will mindlessly scroll through social media, which is a form of procrastination.
Mm-hmm. That's why I stopped. Whew! That
You was like, this book was talking to me.
it was talking to me.
Right, right.
It was asking me to write a book or another essay on top of what
Right.
It's like, you need to reflect, junk journal. You need to write your own book.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
But
triggered.
it is. It really is. And there were three of these examples that I didn't highlight here, but there were three where, I see not only myself, but I see where others, fall victim. And one of those was always caring too much about what other people think.
And Toy, I did that for years. Oh my God, I did that.
And
I'm not even tooting my own horn now, but now that I know that that's what I was doing, I was smarter than all those people. And I'm not even trying to be, and I'm not even trying to be arrogant or I just now can declare for myself with confidence because reading through this content confirmed it for me.
Right, right.
It confirmed the beliefs that I had about myself were untrue.
Yeah.
Because truly, at the end of the day, when she started talking about spotlighting, people didn't care. No. They don't remember. Remember, the example she used was, when do you remember what so and so did the other day? No, don't.
Right, right. Can we reflect back on what happened just a day before?
Right. And that goes to the idea about how when things happen and nowadays with social media, how in about 24 to 36 to 72 hours is completely forgotten.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant. It's no more, there's no more relevance to it.
No more relevance, right.
Nobody remembers, nobody cares.
Yeah, yeah. And she had shared with that particular one about caring too much about what other people think. The reason behind that is because we're really not happy, right? We're not happy. We're not content within ourselves. And when we are content within ourselves, don't really care about what other people think, right? When you're confident and you have a level of understanding about yourself, you really won't care what people think, right? And so how do we resolve this? And she gave us some tools. We resolve this by stopping, taking the moment to ask ourselves, is my life enough for me? How do I view my life when I'm not looking at it through the eyes of others? So how do you do that? How do you view your life when you are not looking at it through the eyes of others? Another that she shared was when we spend too much money. Why are we doing that? Why are we?
You heard me. What did I start with today?
You did. You said,
what did I say? I barely spent any money this week. And that's the honest to God truth. I went to Jollibee one time, and I think I went to Starbucks twice this week.
But why do you feel like you were spending money a lot? She talks about it she said people do it because it tends to make them feel more secure.
Or it tends to feel, or important, or it gives you some sort of feeling of
importance.
So me walking in with my Starbucks into work, that's a status symbol. You know that, right? Like Starbucks is a status symbol now.
Oh, I didn't know.
You know, it's a status symbol. People go to Starbucks and pay for $7 coffee. Not F that. I'm tired of making a Starbucks rich.
Never in a day.
Don't even own a piece of stock in Starbucks. Like a fool, like a total idiot. And I'm walking in with $5 and $7 coffee because the baristas, see, and they even have professional labels. A barista, okay.
Oh, okay.
A coffee connoisseur. that I get to tap into every day for $5 to $7. And I get to customize it the way I want. That would be a grande caramel macchiato. That will be extra caramel drizzle made with whole milk, no foam, please, made upside down.
And you better spell my
extra shot with an extra shot of espresso.
And you better spell my name right.
All right. And spell my name. That's with a Y.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah.
She was just sharing. I thought that was pretty interesting, you know, how she shared things, you know, they just will not make you feel more secure.
They don't.
To find out
broke. You're gonna be broke.
Exactly. And so you better find out quick, fast, and in a hurry why you spend and what function does it serve. And then to make sure you proceed with devising a solution to overcome, right?
And I got to thinking, to apply that to my life, I got to thinking about how she mentioned how someone with $5,000, somebody with $50,000, the inability to manage something like 50,000 versus 5,000, something to that effect. And I really got to thinking, like, how much money do I actually need? I don't think I've sat down and thought about this. And I don't think most people do. I think we just do what we want to do. And she mentions that as well, too. Human beings, you know, what's unique about us is that we literally will do whatever it is we want to do.
Right.
But I don't think I put much thought into it. And I talk to Daddy about this often, about the why. Why am I doing what I am doing?
Yeah.
So you get to the bottom of the why, and then basically you stop self-sabotaging.
Absolutely. But and that little time of reflection, really, it's really about coming to terms with self and developing a level of awareness. And this is what her book does. It just really helps you to put into terms what you are doing.
Yes.
You can possess a greater level of awareness.
Or just a greater level of life quality, a more quality life.
Eventually put enough effort forward to have, a better quality of life, right? Another one that she brought up was having self-defeating thoughts that hold you back from doing what you want.
And Toya, why did I think of this? And I thought about basketball. I thought about track. Before I even started the game at the jump ball, I'm not gonna get it. Why would I think like that? As tall and as lanky and as long as my arms are longer than I am tall. I had no reason to think that. Why did I have those self-defeating behaviors standing at the start line in track? My legs 10 times longer than the next person, and I'm having these self-defeating thoughts. I'm not going to make first place, but I will make second. You know what I mean? Like,
rationalize the second place, right? Yeah, that's interesting. That's funny you said that, because you know, when I played basketball, I was very similar. They literally had me as a starter on the roster, but I didn't start. And it was because I was so terrified. They knew, this was when I played college ball, they knew that I had so much nervous. I was so nervous.
The nervous energy.
Energy, it would make me, I would have so many errors.
That happened to me ninth grade year.
Did it? Oh my goodness.
I was a starter, but then I was the sixth man off the bench. 3 minutes. 3 minutes into the quarter.
Oh my gosh!
And 2 minutes. They put me in.
Right, 2 minutes. She was like, Toya, 2 minutes, let's go. You know, she would give me 2 minutes, and then she would put me into the game. And she said, you know, she was like, you just have so much pent up energy, and you would make mistakes. I'm going to have you come in at 2 minutes. I just need
that. You're gonna foul out. We already know you're gonna foul out in the first quarter.
Exactly, because I was so aggressive. I was so aggressive. I was like, you know, acting crazy, but it was interesting how that 2 minutes helped to calm my energy, calm my nerves, and help me to effectively play ball. But anyway, so she was saying that, you know, we have to get better at, you know, not being mean to ourselves.
Oh,
Being
yes.
mean, it will not make it hurt less. And she said, we tend to be mean to ourselves because we feel like if we do it to ourselves and then someone else judges us or rejects us, it won't, the impact of that will be less.
And
We
that's not
won't,
true.
yeah, which is not true, right? And
And
she,
if you have a hard time with that, with grace is basically what you're saying, showing yourself some grace.
yeah.
If you're having a hard time with that, what she suggests you do is show other people grace
Mm-hmm.
all the time. Just get into a habit of showing people grace, being kind, paying it forward,
Oh, the
doing
reciprocation, right?
right, because you're gonna then it's going to right reciprocate into yourself. It's
Right.
gonna yeah.
Absolutely. So
Um,
essentially, I'll close with that. She just stated, don't be your own bully and hinder your own progression.
right.
Very, very mindful of that. All right, so we'll jump into gut intelligence. She shared, we have to be aware that we have the capabilities to recognize and interpret these negative emotions um, by leveraging our gut, by leveraging that gut intelligence. And she said, deep down, we do know the truth about our lives, not only the present, but also the future.
Mm-hmm.
We essentially serve as an oracle to ourselves. She shared as well that our gastrointestinal system
Mm-hmm.
functions as a second brain that can sense faster than what our conscious mind can recall. She does caution us, though. She says, while it's intelligent, it's
Mm-hmm.
not psychic. I want to
Mm-hmm.
get your thoughts on that.
And that's what I was hinting to earlier about the whole instinct versus clairvoyance. But I kept saying clairvoyance. I'm like, that's not the word she used. It was psychic.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So how we do that, how we do, and psychic feelings is a lot of projection, because if you think about it, and the way she framed it to help me understand it was there's no way that you would know. You didn't have any experience with it. So how are you going to know?
Mm-hmm.
Predicting the future. You never had an experience with something, but you're saying, oh, I knew that was going to happen. No, you didn't. You did not. You did not know that was going to happen. But in other words, instinctually, something from the gut, and trusting your gut is actually more correct than these. What did she say it was called? Gosh, trusting your gut is more correct because it's not psychic.
Mm-hmm.
Gut instinct can only respond to what's happening in the present. If
Mm-hmm.
you have an instinct about a future event, you're projecting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you are projecting, why is projection not a value trait? And I say that why projection from my point of view made me think about, how we try to teach predictive behavior, or predict
Oh.
is going to occur in the future. And like I look at my children, like even within school, when we are reading content or books, one of the things that the school that they attend does very effectively is have them predict what's going to happen. I want you to predict. I want you to use your knowledge base, what you know about life, what you know about the past, what you know about certain experiences.
Right. So that's the experience.
Um,
But
yes.
projection is has a negative connotation because it's unreal unless you can attach it to an experience or some form of evidence.
I'll have to think about that one a little more because even for you to project, the whole reason why nobody just projects without having with with without
Yes,
having a level of understanding or a point of reference.
yes, they do, because projection is imagination. projection identifies more of what is it identifies more or is parallel more to the imagination.
But even with your imagination, you are creating the idea from something.
No, not necessarily.
Something caused you to create that idea. Even if
No.
it's an imaginative. Give me an example. I need to have an example.
Okay. What is a good example? Gosh. I was gonna use something I saw on social media, but I don't think that was a good example.
Maybe we can dive into that one a little bit more, because I kept saying to myself, I wanted to better understand that point, with regards to, while our gut is intelligent, it's not psychic. And I agree with her there, because the reality is, from my perspective, where does our gut get our information from?
From experience.
No, well, I'm talking about from a physiology perspective. Our gut is getting the information from our brain, right? And our brain is tied into our gut.
Correct.
And the brain has a plethora of information that we digest on a daily basis, even if it's irrelevant. I think I shared this with you. Sometimes I sit there and I see things. I'm pulling in information from all different points of view, etc. I might not necessarily have the experience, but my brain is constantly sponging, pulling in information, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes time for me to make a decision, all of a sudden, though, that imagery, those and not that I experienced, but maybe I saw it, right? But I'm seeing it, I'm witnessing it subconsciously, not conscious. It's all coming to me subconsciously, but it's being used so that I can have a viewpoint or begin to leverage my internal instinct to formulate a decision. And so I wanted to get your perspective on it, because I wanted us to be mindful that really gut intelligence comes from all the information that we pull in on a daily basis.
No, it only comes from present information,
Mm,
not future, not past. It comes from present information. It comes from the encounter that you're having. You disagree with that?
I do. I disagree with that, because I just believe it, because it comes from our brain, and our brain, it possesses a level of clairvoyance intelligence.
But we have all different triggers. We have all different things that can impact our feelings, our ways of thinking. So an imagination plays into that.
It comes from somewhere, though. It don't just come out of the blue front sky. It's rare.
Well, and let's not get caught up too much on it, because you can complex the idea, right? I think that what she was just trying to convey here is that your gut is your secondary brain, because of the attachment to the different parts of the brain, because of the vagus nerve, etc. And pulling in that concept and expanding upon it may not be that important.
Or making sure that if we leverage gut intelligence, if you will,
right,
we are mindful about how we leverage it. Right. And so thank you for saying that, because that's a great segue. I was sharing how our brain, it does possess a level of clairvoyance intelligence, and it can be leveraged very effectively to help us manage situations or make decisions. But however, when we're leveraging our gut intelligence and our supernatural cognitive skills, we have to be careful. We have to be careful because we shouldn't confuse our feelings.
Correct.
For example, fear with our instinct.
Mm-hmm.
We need to make sure that we are practicing the use of discernment,
Mm-hmm.
our instincts to help us make decisions.
And that's actually biblical.
Or predict the future. Exactly. This is why
This is why what?
It's a part of why I'm bringing it up, because it was in the Torah. Okay.
It's in every the art of discernment. It's in Buddhist. It's in every.
Yeah, but making sure that we are using those gifts, using discernment to leverage our instincts to help us make decisions or predict the future. We also have to ensure, and this is so important, because if I walk in another room and hear someone's without thinking logically, I think I'm just going, I don't know, Tiffany. I think I'm just going into pieces. Okay. We have to ensure that we are putting our thoughts, even if it's a predictive, a predictive thought, or if we're using clairvoyance, we have to make sure that we're putting our thoughts through a series of tests to validate its legitimacy.
Right, just to make sure. I mean, there we're back to the concept of evidence.
Yeah. The first test, though, and it's so simple, Tiffany. It's so simple. The first test is it logical? Is it logical?
And we don't do that. We live in an era of convenience. We live in an era of I ain't got time. We live in an era of I'm too busy. And busy actually that she explains very well. Actually inefficiency.
You're right. You're absolutely right. The other bit is, the first test is it logical? The second test is, does it make sense? Does it make sense? We need to learn how to make it make sense. And I think that's going to be one of our pearls of wisdom on our next t-shirt here. The first test, is it logical? And does it make sense? Does it make sense? And so she states, and hopefully we'll get to wrap this up here soon, but she does state that psychic abilities, they do not equal wisdom. She stated that. But I truly believe that we can possess greater wisdom if we learn to use our psychic capabilities more effectively. And I want to make sure that when folks are reading this, that they understand that these cognitive gifts, this cognitive intelligence, clairvoyant intelligence that we have, they do exist. They are very valid. However, as purveyors of truth and living authentically, we must be judicial, and we need to ensure that we are not leveraging things like confirmation bias, whereby we are seeking out and sorting through stimuli that supports what we want to think when using our gifts. We have to learn how to tell the difference between thoughts that are informed by our intuition
versus
thoughts that are informed by fear. And she goes through, and I really like this part because I was like, wow, people who have a level of clairvoyance and they use it often to make decisions, etc., this would be very helpful for them, because she goes through about 16 different ways to discern the difference between thoughts produced by our intuition versus thoughts produced by fear, and what it may feel or look like. And so I'm just going to go through a few of those. One of them, she stated, intuitive thoughts are rational. They make a degree of sense, But when we have intruding thoughts, those are irrational and often stem from aggrandizing a situation or jumping to the worst conclusion possible.
Right. The Chicken Little theory, the sky is falling.
Yes. She also shared that intuitive thoughts open our mind to other possibilities, whereas invasive thoughts close our heart and make us feel stuck or condemned. Another thought she indicated was intuitive thoughts come from a deeper place within you, and they give you a resounding feeling deep in your gut. Whereas invasive thoughts keep you stuck in your head and give you a panicked feeling. So making sure it's so important that we understand our needs, and we need to make sure that we are meeting the ones that we are most responsible for. We need to make sure that we are allowing ourselves to show up so that others can meet the ones that we can't do on our own, and help us to break this self-sabotaging cycle and build a healthier, more balanced and fulfilling life.
And before you go past this topic, I just want our listeners to know that you also have to listen to the volume of your thoughts. So she mentions that thoughts, and help me here, I believe instinctive thoughts are quiet. Intrusive thoughts, thoughts that will bring harm, have negative energy. They're loud. So you need to just be mindful, because, well, how do I do it? Listen to the volume.
Yeah, which one is over speaking the other? And that's how you know you're acting more in fear versus leveraging your intuition. Right? All right, folks. I think we have just a couple more slides here. We'll dive into really quick the emotional intelligence. Without the ability to understand ourselves, we inevitably become lost. And so, of course, in order to overcome self-sabotage, we have to have a high level of emotional intelligence. So what is it? What is emotional intelligence? Folks, we throw this word around hoping that folks have an understanding, but let us clarify that for you. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand, interpret, and respond to your emotions in an enlightened and healthy way. People with high emotional intelligence are often able to better get along with different types of people, feel more contentment and satisfaction in their everyday lives, and consistently take time to process and express their authentic feelings. Mostly, though, emotional intelligence is the ability to interpret the sensations that come up in your body and understand what they are trying to tell you about your life. The root of self-sabotage is a lack of emotional intelligence. Without the ability to understand ourselves, we inevitably become lost. Right? So we have to learn to improve our level of emotional intelligence, our overall supreme intelligence, by practicing what we discussed earlier, discernment, and leveraging discernment to help us make decisions about where we want to go, who we want to be, and then give ourselves time to adapt or adjust. We have to be mindful. We can't always live or be governed by how we feel, because our emotions, they're temporary. Here one moment, gone the next. They're not always reflective of reality. However, We do need to have an understanding of these feelings so that we can better assess our situation and identify a resolution through the use of sound and good judgment. And so she continues on, and she takes time to discuss how we need to be careful in utilization of certain tendencies that may arise when we are thinking critically and attempting to come to a resolution. And some of those were extrapolation, which is essentially when we take our current circumstances and then we project them out into the future. She talked about spotlighting, which you brought up, and we'll stop here because I know if you have further commentary about spotlighting, but essentially spotlighting is the effect that happens when we imagine that our lives are performative or on display for others to consume. Right? Did you want
I like the way you put that. It's nothing that I want to add, but listeners are probably like, well, emotional intelligence is not a new concept. And they are right. Mm-hmm. It's not a new concept. It actually has been out for a very long time, like even before, I believe the author's name was Stephen Covey. Mm-hmm. She mentioned, and, you know, with the, as technology has advanced, as life has continues to evolve, and we're getting into more of positive psychology, this concept is coming up more because evidence shows that without it, you're not really reaching your maximal potential. Mm-hmm. You are basically robbing yourself without emotional intelligence. And I just wanted to touch on how emotional intelligence should be a principle for your life. Mm-hmm. That along with resilience. You know, and go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was saying she brought that up, that you know, a lot of things that we experience, and the reason why we have these mountains, the reason why we have this self-sabotage, these you know, this negative energies, because we are not principled people. Mm. So you know, identifying and establishing, developing, acknowledging principles for your life will help to strengthen your emotional intelligence and provide you with the resilience. She spoke about how people that are mentally strong are resilient. Mm-hmm. They're mentally, and you could speak to that. I don't have to.
No, I was just going to say that, you know, we don't necessarily teach emotional intelligence in school.
We don't.
But now they are. All right.
Now they are, right, with the
plug, because I attended a session with Emory University and the Dalai Lama. They partnered together to establish SEE, which is the social, ethical, emotional learning program, where they are teaching emotional intelligence, where they are working through children, because they realized, you know, that we have to start young. We have to start making sure that we have a population of individuals or just us in general have or possess a high level of emotional intelligence to effectively govern within the world, to be stewards within society. And when we don't possess that, and we already see, especially here in the US, all the things that are occurring right now, the shooting in the schools, and you have bullying. And I was just like, oh my God, if we create one more program for crap adults created, it is just going to drive, I'm going to bust something.
It has to do with low emotional IQs.
Exactly. And it's because, exactly, I don't even have to repeat that. I want to, but I won't. But yeah, it's because we lack emotional intelligence. And so there is a big push, a big effort to instill that within our children today. They do it within my children's school. We have the Dalai Lama has created a big initiative around this and is really trying to teach teachers all around the world how to connect this with their students and make sure that it's built and designed within their curriculum.
They should make that the national, that Buddhism actually should be the national religion. Because they come from a place of peace, respect, and their methods and their principles kind of resonate a lot more with what we believe is ideal for our
and I think that's why he's the spokesperson, right?
Huh?
I said, I believe that's why he's the spokesperson for it, because that is their practice. That is something that they have known all along. They've been practicing this since the beginning
of time, and it's worked for them.
It's definitely worked for them, and it's something that needed to be shared more broadly, because there is a big struggle within our environment today, how we just are because of our egos, we lack that compassion. I love that because he uses that word, that compassion for others, the compassion for our environment that we live in. You know, we just keep taking and building and destroying without replenishing, right? Without reviving, without refreshing, right? And so hopefully we'll see more of that here in our future, the future to come. And she also talked about logical lapses, right? She talked about logical lapses that espouses anxiety. And that's when you're jumping to the worst case scenario because you aren't really thinking clearly. And then you are engaging your fight or flight response because the worst case scenario makes you feel threatened. She talks about faulty inferences, where you come up with a false conclusion based on valid evidence, right? Not using information, discernment effectively. And so this means that what you're seeing, experiencing, or understanding might be real, but the assumptions that you are piecing together from it are either not real or they are highly unlikely. She talks about worrying, you know, and she says, it's so interesting because I just spoke to a woman today, not today, but this week, where she was trying to worry me to death on the phone about her. You know, I'm a technologist, right? I support individuals with their hardware, their equipment, their software, etc. And one of the things she said was, "Oh my gosh, I just got hacked. I gave this hacker all of my personal information, and now she has like her whole home is a
smart home."
And so they've infiltrated her home. And the girl was just like, oh my gosh, trying to drive me bananas with worrying. And I thought to myself, I was like, I just have to ask you, you know, are you religious at all? And she said, yes, I am. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Do you pray? And she was like, well, yes, I pray. And I was like, then why are you worried like you are? And she's like, you know, and it just kind of shut her down. And I was like, you know, you might want to, I didn't tell her she needed to calm down. I said, but don't worry. I said, you know, you are going to be gifted with the tools and resources that you need in order to help you get through this situation.
Right.
A matter of time that all of this will be over. So, you know, you don't have to worry. Okay. Just make sure now put forth effort. Now, don't just sit back, but put forth effort to resolve the issue. But don't worry yourself to death like this. Right? You know, it's our weakest defense system, is what Brianna says. We cannot beat fear to the finish line. Worrying sensitizes us to an infinity of negative possible outcomes. And this is what this woman was doing. She went from her equipment to someone was walking in her yard, to the people behind her are doing construction, and they might be infiltrating her. I mean, she went from so big.
Okay, now that was just,
I'm telling you, Tiffany, it was like she wanted to project her.
right. She wanted you to feel it so then you would get passionate about solving her problem, but you were already like, I got it solved. I'm not about to worry about it. That's number one.
Exactly. I said, call me back. Call me back when you get this, and this, So I gave her some advice on what she needed to do. But, I just was thinking to myself, girl, this woman needs to shift her mindset. And that's what she said. She needs to shift her mindset, right? We have to
go through that paradigm shift.
Yeah, do a complete paradigm shift, because worrying, it causes shift in our mind to expect. It causes a shift in our mind to seek out.
It's like a self-inflicted post-traumatic stress.
By creating what? Because in our mind, we're creating what? The worst case scenario, right?
You're creating the worst case scenario. And then what that does is that shrinks part of your brain, as she described. And actually, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
But that those experiences can make the prefrontal cortex smaller, or those areas of the brain that you need for reasoning.
Causing PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Yeah. And so she said, if a crisis were to occur when we are worrying and using it as our weakest, our defense system, we generally would start panicking because our brains and bodies had been for some reason preparing for some sort of epic war, right? That really never comes.
Mm-hmm. Right? Very, very rarely comes.
And it ends up impacting us from a mental perspective. Okay. Actually causing a little bit of brain dysfunction. All right. Okay, so the past, present, and future. What leaves the path is clearing the path, right? And I really like Tiffany. I said I'm going to end on this because I really liked how when we were just kind of casually talking, and I'll let you kick it off. How you brought it all together about the past, present, and future. Did you want to share, or did you want me to go ahead and?
That present is awareness. Past is equal to thinking about the past is equal to depression, and thinking too far in the future is anxiety.
Yeah.
So when we worry, I'm not even worrying, but when we're thinking, are we having thoughts, or we're having feelings, we should be aware. We should try to stay present. The times that it may be appropriate for our mind to wander are in those dedicated time slots of our life, like with meditation or yoga or Pilates, or in those settings where it's okay to let your mind, wander. Actually, that's what you want to do. And you actually don't even need to control that part. But when you have feelings or thoughts that take you into the past or too far into the future, what you can expect to find there is depression, is anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Future anxiety. And I thought when the way that concept was brought to light for me, it made so much sense when she said it. And I listened to it over and over again. And then I tried to look at examples in my life where, why was I getting so depressed? Or what makes me so down? And when I think about it, it's because I will go back to an event that occurred, and I think of how I would have done it differently. But why? It's past. The moment is over. It's like the orangutan in The Lion King when he pops him on the head, and he was like, it doesn't matter. It's in the past. It's like, just leave it there, leave it. And I say this to myself a lot too, like, I don't even remember the details.
Mhm.
Like even like with anger, or even like with, about something in the past. I don't even remember the details, honestly. Some I do,
All right.
that have impacted me, but most of the time I don't. And so why even go there? Why even put yourself through that? But
Right.
the person who gets through situations like that, or the person who is cognizant and um aware, basically,
Mhm.
um is mentally strong. Of course, they're resilient, and they're able to navigate their way through feelings and thoughts like that. The stronger their mind is.
Yeah, that is so
Um,
so true. Yeah, I mean, self-sabotage, it's it's definitely a product of the decisions that we've made. Um, it's definitely a product of, what we have permitted to compound over time.
mhm,
And like you said, when we sit there and we obsess over the past, we're living in regret.
mhm,
And is that healthy? Probably not, right? It when we're living in regret, sometimes we have our heads so far down in the sand, it's hard to get out of that.
mhm.
And when we're living in the future, something that has not even occurred,
It
we're
may not occur. You
saying,
just wasted that time
yeah, we're creating all this anxiety,
and
right?
put all that energy into something
That
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 has a low likelihood of even
right,
occurring.
yeah, and the most important in terms of if we truly want to overcome self-sabotaging behaviors is to learn to live in the present.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the common themes that just kept surfacing all throughout this book was how possessing, you said it already, that level of awareness is so critical to warding
Mm-hmm.
self-sabotaging behavior.
Mm-hmm. And this is why I tell people, and I tell my patients this too, be careful what you allow to enter your mind.
Mhm.
Because the mind is powerful. That's not just a cliche term. The mind is powerful.
Mhm.
Um,
It is so so true. Because if and when we are, self-aware, we do tend to find that, Tiffany, we're living in the present. And by living in the present, I feel like, from my personal perspective, we'll have a more balanced frame of mind, and we'll be able to minimize emotions of regret and anxiety.
mhm,
The author, Brianna, she does share that if we do tend to struggle in these areas, we do have the capabilities to use techniques. And one of the questions that I was going to ask you earlier is that, is there ever a moment where we should obsess over the past, or the future? And I don't want to say the term obsess, no, but reflect, yes. I think
mhm.
it's healthy for us to reflect on it. Uh,
Yeah.
Sharing, that we should use, that we can use techniques of journaling. You said junk journaling earlier, uh,
Uh-huh.
and reflection by, you know, one of her thoughts was the exercise of inner child work, um,
Right.
through, and you can do it either or.
Oh, Toy, and I got so angry on this part too. I'll have to tell you about it when
Yeah,
we.
you're going to tell me about it because I'm about to ask you the question about, did you have a chance to go through the journaling exercise? But
No, I didn't go through the journaling exercise because I mainly listened to this on Audible, but and wanted to buy the workbook that is actually accompanies this book. But it wasn't going to come soon enough. But I mean, and of course these things are available online, so no excuses there. It's just that when I got to that part, I played that part over and over in my mind about my inner child, like what, and I'll tell you offline. Honestly, I just think it's too heavy for this moment where this has been just a real positive experience. I had a really like negative emotion come up when she mentioned the inner child and journaling, like all of these thoughts flooded my brain with and how something happened to me as a child shaped who I am today, and I'll tell you about that because I don't have a problem with sharing it. I just think that it's just too heavy for the moment right now. The other thing I want to mention too, before we go past the concept that we were just talking about with past, present, and future, is letting a single issue or a single moment be defining. And I think that is an error we all make. We're like, oh, I made this mistake, and so that defines me for the rest of my life. No, actually, it doesn't. Actually, I'm human. And if had I not made the mistake, I probably wouldn't be where I am today, because it somehow made me, it shaped me in a way, it groomed me in a way to make me maybe more a mature person, to make me a more loving person, because I did make that mistake and I realized. But you have to also be a person who acknowledges that too, because you can not acknowledge it or not recognize it.
Purpose of proactive is the way is because sometimes these things happen, right? We make a mistake, or we have a certain situation within our lives where we're like, we'll never get out of this. Why were we dealt the bad hand, etc. And we just don't have a level of awareness to understand that there's other people out there that are going through what we're going through. And there's other moments that people are going through that we don't have to let define us, right? And if people are trying to force that upon you, trying to make that the ultimate definition of who you are, they are leading you astray, and you need to get away from them quick, fast, and in a hurry. And sometimes your environment won't let you, and you have to find ways to help you overcome those type of environments. Especially if you are living at home and you can't necessarily leave, but what is it? You can't control that, but what is it within yourself you have the capabilities to control to help you get over your life circumstances? Okay. And so, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we brought that up because in the book, she does take you through a very in-depth journaling experience where you talk to your younger self and you help your younger self come to terms with your past, your behaviors, your mannerisms, validating who you are, identifying root problems of how you became who you are today, and making sure that you give space to release your past self, and closing with providing ourselves a guide on how to become the best versions of ourselves within the future. And she said you can take that from the point of your inner child, or the your past self or your future self. But she goes into depth more with that. And so I do strongly encourage, if you have not done so, get the book. It definitely is helpful, enlightening, and enriching.
It's transformative, actually. It can be transformative if you're not already there yet. It can really provide you with the catalyst, the momentum to move forward with areas in your life that you have experienced a lot of doubt, fear, weakness. It could provide you with the efforts you need to take, or the guidance you need to take to develop a stronger mental state.
Absolutely. All right, Tiff, how about it?
We did. This was good. I enjoyed dialoguing with you on this book. It was a lot of things that I could connect with this particular author. I was, because she said a lot of things that I was just like, ooh, oh, like that's powerful. That's dynamic.
Right.
That is relative to me. That's relevant. That's current. That's contemporary. I appreciate that. Like I had a lot of appreciation for a lot of the things that she could say, because I like to be able to identify.
Mhm.
I look for ways to identify when I'm talking with someone, because I know whether or not then if it's right for me. Like if I can't identify like what you're saying, we probably ain't gonna be friends. You know what I mean? Like we ain't gonna spend too much time together. Like I'll hear what you have to say, and like you taught me a long time ago, like, and throw it over my shoulder like a grain of salt with whatever else you had to say. Cause I ain't got
Hold on to
yeah.
it. Don't work. And throw it over your shoulder and keep it moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Fantastic. Well, yes, definitely was an enjoyable experience. Of course, we're not going to close just yet. We do want to make sure that we go about and share our music selection. We are lovers of music, and each episode we do select a musical selection that resonates with us for our topic of discussion. Last week, I did select my music choice, I Can See Clearly Now by Jimmy Cliff. And this week, Tiffany will share with us her song selection.
So, and when we're choosing a song selection, what you have to realize is that we're actually, looking at how it may apply. And I looked at, Ludacris, and how he was like, move, get out the way, BITCH. However, I don't think anything was negative about his song. It actually, and if it didn't apply, and that's not what he meant, I'm sorry. But if you read the lyrics, it does have some relevance with what we talked about, because he talks about illusions, and he talks about goals, and he talks about how people tend to disrupt those with a bunch of bullshit, and that how he satisfied, how he was able to be resilient, how he was able to get over that mountain is by saying, move, get out the way, bitch. And that empowered him.
Right.
And he's successful.
Right. I was thinking about that, but I remember I said in our last episode, I was like, watch Tiffany. Here she gonna come with some Ludacris. And he was like, oh, I didn't care.
Actually, I was like, this can apply. I look for those entry points where I can, make things applicable to my life, and that might be confirmation bias. But I do look for those opportunities where I can apply things that I identify with, and I identify with trap music. I identify with R&B.
I'm not mad at you.
I identify with alternative.
We both grew up on it.
Yeah, I was I started to say I might go into the genre of music like heavy metal. Ain't no black people in that. Let me start screaming over some music.
Schmo. My daughter, she like heavy metal. I was like,
yeah, because you screaming, but you want people to, you getting their attention with a loud ass, sound, and then they having to decipher what are they talking about.
Right.
It's a different kind of rap.
Oh my goodness. All right, now folks, that is a wrap. Join us in 2 weeks as we celebrate Christmas with a little holiday cheer. Tiffany will present us with a number of songs, and you will have to answer the question related to that song or to a previous podcast episode. For each question you get correct, your name will be entered into a drawing, and we will be giving away a little holiday cheer. You will get your choice of a t-shirt or a mug from the KK Cafe collection. If you haven't been out there to check out the collection, please go to www.kinkyknotscafe.com. Also, if you have not done so, please make sure you have joined Proactive is the Way group. where we provide member-only content and opportunities to participate in polls, self-reflection, or activities to win KK Cafe gear. Once again, check out the KK Cafe collection, where we have provided some of our pearls of wisdom on attire that you can take with you wherever you go, serving as a constant reminder on the steps you can take to be more proactive, validated, and living life unashamed. We look forward to you joining us. There is no preparation needed for our next episode, so just come ready to enjoy a little holiday fun with music, laughter, and some friendly competition. To access all replays or learn more about Kinky Knots Cafe's Proactive is the Way, please visit www.kinkyknotscafe.com. Proactive is the way, my friends. Take good care.